Manchester United are back in the Champions League, but in just a few hours, their return could begin with one of the toughest schedules in Europe, because when the 2026/27 Champions League draw takes place in Monaco, United will be in Pot 2, and that does not protect them from the Giants in Pot 1. They are required to face two teams from that pot. Since English clubs cannot face each other in the league phase, the remaining possible opponents for United include Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Inter Milan, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid. Two of those 6 teams could appear on Manchester United's schedule, but this is only the first layer of a draw that could create completely different paths to the knockout stage. At 11 p.m. on August 27th, Vietnam time, 36 clubs will enter the league phase draw at the Grimaldi Forum in Monaco. The playoff round concluded. Fenerbahce, Viking, AEK Athens, and Slovan Bratislava claim the final 4 places on the night of August 26th, following Sabah, Bodo/Glimt, and Lask. And with that, there are no places left. From Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid, and Barcelona, to Manchester United, Napoli, Fenerbahce, and Como, every club is now waiting for one thing: the 8 opponents that will shape their Champions League season. But there is one detail that is very easy for supporters to misunderstand. Being in a higher-seeded pot no longer means a safer path like it did under the old group stage format. The Champions League now has 4 pots, with 9 teams in each. Every club must face 2 opponents from each pot, for a total of 8 different teams, with 4 matches at home and 4 away. That means even a team in Pot 1 must face 2 other teams from Pot 1. Paris Saint-Germain could be drawn against other European heavyweights. So could Real Madrid. So could Barcelona. And that is exactly why this draw is more dangerous than the labels Pot 1 or Pot 2 might make it seem. Look at Pot 1, and its weight is obvious. PSG are joined by Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Liverpool, Inter Milan, Manchester City, Arsenal, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid. PSG entered this season as back-to-back Champions League winners after beating Arsenal on penalties in the 2026 final. But that trophy does not give them an easy league phase. Under the current rules, the defending champions still have to face 2 other teams from Pot 1. That means matchups such as PSG against Real Madrid, Barcelona against Bayern, or Inter against Arsenal can all happen if the draw conditions allow it. There is no need to wait until February or March. Matches that feel like knockout ties can arrive right at the start of the competition, and this is where Manchester United's situation becomes especially interesting. United are in Pot 2 alongside Borussia Dortmund, Roma, Sporting CP, Aston Villa, Porto, Club Brugge, Real Betis, and PSV. Under the logic of the old format, people might look at Pot 2 and assume United had avoided most of the danger, but that logic no longer exists. United still have to face 2 teams from Pot 1. They must also face 2 teams from Pot 2, 2 from Pot 3, and 2 from Pot 4. It is true that the rules prevent them from facing Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester City, or Aston Villa in the league phase, but removing the English clubs from the list does not remove the risk. It simply makes the pool of possible foreign opponents much clearer. Imagine one completely valid scenario. Manchester United could draw 2 extremely strong opponents from Pot 1. Then, from Pot 3, they could face teams such as Napoli, RB Leipzig, Villarreal, Fenerbahce, or Galatasaray, and there would still be 2 matches against Pot 4. On paper, Pot 4 looks easier, but Stuttgart, Lens, Como, or away trips to teams that have just come through qualifying are not necessarily matches where 3 points can simply be assumed. This is not a prediction that United will draw those exact opponents. The result will only be known after the draw, but it shows one important thing. A schedule of death in the new Champions League does not require 8 super clubs. 4 or 5 extremely difficult matches across 8 rounds are enough to completely change the pressure on the standings. That is why the most important thing tonight is not simply who gets Real Madrid or who gets PSG. It is the overall difficulty of all 8 matches. A team could draw one extremely strong Pot 1 opponent but play that match at home, then receive more manageable opponents from Pots 3 and 4. Another team could avoid the most frightening name but still face several difficult away trips and clubs with completely different styles. With only 8 matches, the margin for error is much smaller. The draw does not decide who will win the Champions League, but it can decide which teams are allowed to make more mistakes. Another factor that needs to be understood precisely is how UEFA controls the matchups. Under the 2026/27 regulations, each team faces 2 opponents from every pot, with 1 home match and 1 away match against the opponents from each pot. In principle, two clubs from the same national association cannot face each other in the league phase, and a club cannot face more than two opponents from the same other country. UEFA allows the draw process to use a digital component to ensure these conditions are satisfied. The exact procedural details of the 2026/27 draw are published by UEFA on the day of the event. So this is no longer simply a matter of pulling 8 balls from a bowl. The system has to create a network of 144 matches that is random, valid, and workable within the competition calendar. Once the 8 opponents have been determined, there is still one piece of information supporters will not receive immediately: the exact schedule. UEFA says the league phase match dates and kickoff times will be announced no later than Saturday, August 29th, and that detail matters far more than it might seem. Facing Bayern after another major Premier League match is very different from facing Bayern after a favorable weekend. An away trip to Istanbul in the middle of a run of 3 away games is also completely different from playing the same fixture during a lighter week. So tonight's draw will answer the question, who do you face? But the question, how difficult is it really, will only be fully answered when the fixture calendar is placed alongside those 8 names. The road to Madrid, therefore, begins in Monaco. The league phase starts on September 8th and ends on January 27th, 2027. After that come the playoffs, round of 16, quarterfinals, and semifinals before the final takes place at the Estadio Metropolitano on June 5th. PSG are trying to do something almost unprecedented in the Champions League era: follow 2 consecutive titles by defending the trophy yet again. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern, Inter, Arsenal, Manchester City, and Liverpool all enter the race with ambitions of their own. Manchester United, meanwhile, return to this stage with a different question. Will they be given a favorable enough path to rebuild their status? Or will they immediately be thrown into a brutal run of tests against Europe's elite? So when the draw starts unfolding in Monaco, do not look only at the first opponent. Look at all 8 names. Look at the home games and the away games. And above all, look at the 2 opponents from Pot 1, because in the new Champions League, there is no longer a traditional group of death, but there can absolutely be a schedule of death. If you are a Manchester United supporter, which 2 Pot 1 teams would you most want to avoid? PSG, Bayern, Real Madrid, Inter, Barcelona, or Atletico Madrid?